Now, across Texas, the issue is.
I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
I'm Greg Grugan in Houston.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin, and this is Texas, the issue is.
Condemnation of conduct. Those were the words from the House GOP caucus when it censured 4 members. The reason for campaigning against sitting incumbents. I talked to North Texas State Representative Brian Harrison about being censured. In the fallout from the runoff election where House Speaker Dade Phelan held on to his seat, the House GOP caucus censured 4 of Phelan's biggest critics.
Too much is at stake, quite frankly, for me to care what some social club, caucus organization in Austin thinks about what I'm trying to do, given how much is on the line.
Waxahachie Representative Brian Harrison, Fort Worth Representative Nate Schatzline, Arlington Representative Tony Tinderholt, and Spring Representative Steve Toth were condemned by the caucus for supporting the campaign of challengers who ran against incumbents. I spoke to Harrison about the censure.
I am unapologetic that I spent this primary season traveling around the state with Governor Greg Abbott, Senator Ted Cruz, Attorney General Ken Paxton, Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, to campaign for real conservatives against fake Republicans who have betrayed their voters.
Do you think the term fake Republican is a bit of a stretch? I mean, some of these people joined you in spending a ton of money at the border, passing the heartbeat bill, one of the most restrictive abortion laws in the country. You think these people are fake Republicans?
I think many of them absolutely are. And I've never said that no conservative bill has ever passed the Texas House. That's what that question would be refuting. That would be an absurd allegation. Of course, some conservative bills have passed the Texas House, but in almost every instance, including the ones you just mentioned, those were done over the objection of these fake Republicans who, quite frankly, would have rather not done those things, or that slow walked it for years and years and years. No, there are there were only 8 legislative priorities the Republican Party of Texas asked the Texas House to do last session. The Republican leadership, so-called Republican of the Texas House, said, no, we are not going to do those 8 priorities. But what did they do instead? They prioritized over 500 Democrat bills. Our so-called Republican speaker, absolutely a fake Republican.
So should there be no bipartisanship in Texas? I would rebut with that.
I get it. I just have to laugh. Just because you can support bipartisanship, which I do, I have joint authored bills with some of the most liberal members of the Texas House of Representatives when I saw an opportunity to collaborate to protect liberty. But being bipartisan doesn't mean you put the other team in charge, because if that were the case, why would anybody vote for Republicans if they're just going to put Democrats in charge after they get elected? It makes no sense.
If there's a divide in the House GOP caucus, how are you guys going to elect a speaker? I mean, how many days are we going to be in Austin when you guys start next year? If there's already there's factions now.
Quite frankly, he should be embarrassed and humiliated with what he had to do to get reelected. But here's the question people should be asking. Why are Democrats saving Dade Phelan and sending him back to the Texas House? Well, I think the answer is obvious. Democrats reelected Dade Phelan because he empowers them in Austin and he advances their liberal big government priorities in the Texas House. So what I'm more focused on than the speaker race right now is reforming the Texas House from what it has become under liberal fake Republicans like Dade Phelan and liberal Republicans before him, a corrupt den of liberal dysfunction.
I hear what you're saying, but what Democrat priority has passed? Now, I understand you retorting with school vouchers were blocked. Totally get that. And some Republicans joined. I get that. What Democrat priorities have passed in the House?
That would take me until tomorrow to get done with that list. And let me give you 2 statistics. There were only 8 legislative priorities that the Republican Party of Texas asked for us to do. Those failed. However, Dade Phelan and his Liberal Calendars Committee prioritized over 500. I had my staff look into this very question just the other day. Over 500 liberal priorities were put on the floor of the Texas House.
Rudy Koski, what's your one word to describe that interview?
Wow, there's certainly a lot there. You know, originally I was thinking rhino, but I'm just going to have to go with clubbing.
All right, Greg Grugan, what about you?
Stephen, I'm going to go with radical.
It was a heated conversation. We'll have a lot more to discuss after this short break. The Fox Texas Trio is back. Greg Grugan, you're first up to bat. Brian Harrison basically said that the GOP caucus is a social club and is pointless. Does the caucus lose its weight? Does it have any power heading into 2025?
Well, Stephen, I guess we're going to see. I mean, this whole censure is just a skirmish in the much larger civil war ripping up the Texas GOP. It's given the Republican zealots targeted a day or two in the news cycle, the demagogue, but it's only significant in that it reflects the bloody rift. Rudy may disagree, but I count 20 to 30 House Republicans who by political inclination or personal loyalty will stick with Dade Phelan's less radical conservatism as Speaker. And that's more than enough when combined with Democrats who frankly have nowhere else to go. Now that said, I think there's some serious hubris going on within the Harrison and Toth and the rest. They are assuming the lion's share of Texas independents will continue to vote Republican regardless of how many moderates they brand as rhinos and regardless of how restrictive their social agenda becomes. Of course, it certainly doesn't hurt the hard rights cause with the rank and file of the Texas voters when Democrats prominently feature drag queens at their state convention. Look, to each his own, but is that really a recipe for electoral success in the Lone Star State?
I think we're seeing both parties going to the extremes of their party beyond the primary scene. Rudy Koski, Representative Toth was quick to run to the saving of House GOP caucus chair Tom Oliverson, who is running against Dade Phelan for Speaker. Your thoughts on that?
Stephen, the action by the House GOP social club, which is why my word was clubbing, as Representative Harrison called his own caucus, was, only a slap on the wrist, and it came really as no surprise, right? The caucus was trapped by its own rules and at least showed a little political backbone in upholding Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment. It's worth noting some hardliners on the right would probably call the late president a rhino today. There is a stronger argument, Harrison's fake Republican slur, better suiting those who took money last year from a political group linked to a Nazi sympathizer, and to those pushing school vouchers, ESA plans, which in reality cut from the same political cloth as the guaranteed income plan being pushed by Democrats in Austin and Houston. As for his claim 500 Democrat bills getting some type of special treatment, wow. Here's the hard numbers on that. During the regular session last year, House members filed more than 8,000 bills. The Senate, 3,500 bills. Governor Abbott signing 1,100 bills, allowing 132 without a signature. And many were either sponsored or co-sponsored by Democrats. So did Governor Greg Abbott enable Democrat legislation? Or were those bills just good ideas that had the votes to pass? Stephen?
Well said, Rudy, on that. A bit of fact-checking and stats. Greg, we are clearly seeing the lines being drawn in the sand. There are factions in the Republican Party. There are factions in the Democrat Party. Today we're talking about the Republicans. Will those factions mean that we're going to have multiple ballots? Is it going to be like the U.S. House electing a speaker?
Like I said, unless I'm totally missing something, Phelan has the votes unless there is a mass defection of his loyalists or unless Democrats withhold their support. It's kind of head-spinning how we got here. I can actually remember sitting in Steve Toth's office years ago and him telling me how he thought Phelan was a good guy and would be a really good speaker. Fair to say perspectives within the GOP have changed pretty radically since then, fueled by lots of West Texas oil money, Donald Trump, and Democratic opposition that's tacking further and harder to the left on just about everything. Not much of a choice for those who consider themselves independent pragmatists.
Rudy, quickly, you have the last word.
I think Greg's count is right. The numbers there are for Phelan, but I think the Trump conviction in New York has certainly flipped a lot of early expectations of what may happen in January. Depending on the fallout from the November general election, most political analysts believe there's going to be a lot of bitter payback coming to Democrats in red states like Texas and on Capitol Hill next year. But look, in 23, a Democrat takeover in the Texas State House, that didn't happen, and it's extremely doubtful it's going to happen in 2025. Harrison mentioned his 8 Republican priorities for 23. Well, by my count, all passed except for that House committee chairmanship banning on Democrats. So I'm not quite sure where his numbers are coming from.
To see this episode or any of our other ones, go to our station's YouTube channels.
And keep the conversation going on social media.
Join us next week as we tackle another hot topic. And remember, let us know what you think the issue is.